What's good, everybody? It's your boy Silver back at you again with another video. But this is going to be a different type of video. This video is going to be about the type of cards that you can actually put into the deck and what cards is splashable amongst all the ones that you've built. So, like, comment, and subscribe, and let me know if this video, has worked out for you. So, without further ado, let's begin. Now there's no particular order for this list that I have here. I'm just going to talk about them individually. So, starting at number one, we have Scyther. Now, the reason why I say Scyther is splashable in any deck is because you can attack with it with any energy cards, as long as you have three. So you can attach 3 energy cards to Scyther, deal 30 satisfying damage actually. And when I say satisfying, I mean like you deal 30 damage, and you can just go about your day pretty much. Now, Scyther can also be a startup fodder. So, for as long as Scyther doesn't get paralyzed or anything like that while it's inactive, it has no retreat cost. So, anytime when your Pokemon on the bench gets ready to attack, you can just retreat Scyther for free and just go to the Pokemon who's ready to, And then if you decide to put scoop ups into your deck, you can actually scoop Scyther up, put them back into your hand, and use it for other cards like Pokemon Trader and things like that, which I'll be talking about later on. But Scyther is one of the staples of the deck that you can actually splash into. It doesn't matter what deck you put him in. You can put him in a water deck, put him in a fire deck, you can put him in mixed, other mixed decks and things like that. Scyther is your go-to. Next we have Mr. Mime. Now Mr. Mime is an interesting one. You're thinking, why would you put a 40 hit point Pokemon into any deck you make? It's because Mr. Mime has Invisible Wall. It says whenever an attack, including own, does 30 damage or more to Mr. Mime, prevent all that damage. But any effects of other attacks still happen. So Mr. Mime is an interesting card. Now when you're put in a very dangerous situation where your opponent has already evolved his Pokemon into like a stage 2 Pokemon, or he has moves that are kind of expensive when it comes to energies, but they make up for in power. Like if they have like 40 base damages, like Arcanine, that's a stage 1 Pokemon that has Flamethrower and it does 50 damage and 80 damage as well. But if you put a Mr. Mime in front of Arcanine cannot do any damage to Mr. Mime at all because it does too much. So your opponent will be forced to retreat, but the thing is they can also use Switch. So Switch, you can just use the training card, switch Arcanine to another bench Pokemon for free without the expense of any energy cards at all. So, and the other weakness that Mr. Mime probably has is, well, there's two of them actually. You can actually knock Mr. Mime out. You can actually one-shot Mr. Mime, but I won't tell you how, unless But there's a way you can actually one-shot Mr. Mime, or you can prevent Mr. Mime's Invisible Wall if you have Muck in your deck, which has it's a Pokepower. What's it called? It's called what's it called? Toxic-Gas. It's called Toxic-Gas. Toxic-Gas prevents all Pokepowers for as long as he's in play. He could be on the bench, and Mr. Mime would just be useless. But see, the thing is, if you actually build Mr. Mime into a Psychic deck, Mr. Mime can actually knock Muck out. But that's unless Mr. Mime can survive long enough to be able to do it. So, that's Mr. Mime. Next is Chansey. Now, Chansey has 120 hit points. You can actually attach energies to Chansey to use Scrunch, and you can just keep preventing your Chansey from being hit, but it does require you 2 energies to be able to do it. So if you don't have any double colored energies in the deck to attach to Chansey, then you'll be using 2 energy cards to use Scrunch, and it's a coin flip, so you're not even guaranteed to not take damage during the turn, during the next turn after you flip that coin. So, but another thing that we need to talk about, like I said before, it has 120 damage, which means it'll be harder to knock Chansey out if you're not being hit by Pokemon of the fighting class, fighting energy cards, fighting Pokemon cards. So, But Chansey could also be used as pretty much a shield for all the other Pokemon that's on the bench because she's at the active. She sponges damage, and then you can use Scoop Up if you want. You can use Scoop Up. You can use Pokemon Trainer. Pokemon Center. Heal all the damage off of Chansey, or you could just, you can switch, and yeah, or you could use Chansey for other cards, like I said before. But yeah, Chansey's pretty much a sponge um, for other attacks that do like 10 damage, 20 damage. But and then it can't be one-shotted. There's no way to get to one-shot it unless you're using like Pokemon like Machamp or. Actually, I think that's it. I think Machamp is the only way. No, Machoke. You can use Machoke, but Machoke requires himself to take 20 damage back in him. So, but yeah, the only way that you'll guarantee a one-shot without any type of repercussions is if you use Machamp, Seismitoss it. Otherwise, you can two-shot it, three-shot it, doesn't matter. But next is Kangaskhan. Now, Kangaskhan is a starter Pokemon. Kangaskhan is a Pokemon that you can use at the start by using Fetch, and you can just draw a card for free. Well, not for free. You take one energy card, you draw a card, and then he just becomes a card, a deck thinning, type of strategy. So just draw a card. I don't usually you won't usually use it for an attack because it takes 4 energies to do. His attacks actually take more energies to use than his retreat costs, which I don't use for it either. Where'd it go? Yeah, there you go. Because his retreat costs it takes 3 energies to switch to another Pokemon on the bench, and like I said, if you're going to be using Kangaskhan, be careful because he only has 90. He has 90 hit points, but he's weak to fighting. It's real easy to knock him out, and then he doesn't really fight back. He doesn't have a fight back mechanic, so Kangaskhan is solely used for drawing more cards into your hand. Now, speaking of drawing cards into your hand, this is really important to talk about. Professor Oak. Use Professor Oak in your deck. If you don't have a way of drawing cards into your deck in a game like this, then don't build a deck at all. I'm just saying, Professor Oak is highly used in any decks that you make. You discard your whole hand to draw 7 cards. You need to be able to get into your cards really fast, and I think Professor Oak is the best way to do it. So with that being said, make room for Professor Oak in a 60-card deck. Now, what I do want to talk about is, if you're making a 60-card deck, you draw 7. That means that leaves 53 cards in the deck. And then if you're playing with 6 prize cards, 6 from 53 will make it 47. So now you're playing with 47 cards in your deck. If you're drawing 7, that leaves 40. If you draw another 7, that leaves 33. So in total, in perspective, that means that you're going to be milling your deck drawing into your cards extremely fast. And it's not Yu-Gi-Oh! So you don't have a hand limit. You can keep as many cards in your hand as possible. But you also want to be careful of using Professor Oak because he discards all cards in your hand, which means if you have another Professor Oak in hand, you could risk discarding him. So, but you have to use him. So it's like you discard Professor Oak. There is a trainer card that allows you to put Professor Oak back into the deck, which is, it's called Maintenance. And you put 2 cards back into your deck, shuffle your deck, draw 1. So you could wait a turn. I wouldn't recommend waiting a turn, but you can wait a turn to draw to another card. So, on situations where you have like 2 cards in your hand, and you could use Maintenance, put Professor Oak back into the deck, shuffle to draw 1, and wait the next turn to use Professor Oak if you need it. Hopefully you draw into a card you actually need, so you can just use it right away, and then something fell, sorry. But yeah, Bill, self-explanatory, draw 2 cards. Pot of Greed for Pokemon, but draw 2 cards. This, now you're only drawing 2 cards, but Unlike Professor Oak, you're not discarding your whole hand to do it, which is good. Pokemon Trader. Now, Pokemon Trader is one of the best ways to get Pokemon from your deck into your hand. And it's easier to use than Pokeball because Pokeball you have to flip a coin and you're not guaranteed to hit heads. If you hit tails, then the Pokeball effect whips and you just discard the card into your hand. You need to be able to use cards that have an effect that you can use right away. Pokemon Trader is the best way to do it. Trade one Pokemon. Basically, trade one Pokemon from your hand for a Pokemon in your deck. Shuffle your deck. Show the Pokemon to your opponent, and then, that's pretty much it. So if you need to get into stage 2 Pokemon that's really grueling to try to evolve, use Pokemon Trader. I would suggest using at least 3. 4 is good. If you think it's too much, you could just go to 3, but anything between like 2 or 1 is not enough. Energy removal. Now, in a game where attaching an energy card once per turn is, it's pretty much a race game. Depending on who goes first, they get to attach an energy first. But then, if you're caught in a situation where you have to go second, if you use energy removal, and then you get an advantage by attaching energy yourself, but then they can do it right back to you. So, energy removal, and not so much as super energy removal, because the card requires a card discard to your discard pile and to remove 2. Energy removal gets rid of that first turn advantage. Okay. Now we have Scoop Up. Scoop Up, like I said, take a Pokemon from your play, on your side of the field. Scoop it up to your hand, and you can put it back on the field, and it won't have any damage counters. But you want to be careful of doing this because it takes all the cards that's attached to it. And if it's a stage 2 Pokemon, you don't want to, it'll pretty much discard everything into the discard pile. So it'll just leave this one basic Pokemon, while the rest of your like stage 1, stage 2, energy cards, all that will be discarded to the discard pile. The only way you'll be able to get those back is if you use something like Recycle and energy retrievals. But I mean, the situation is too situational for you for you to want to do that. So I wouldn't recommend it. Use Scoop Up, but do it at your own risk. I think this is the last card, and now we have Defender. Defender helps reduce damage by 20. In any situation where your Pokemon may get knocked out, you can just reduce the damage by 20. If you're using something like Electabuzz and he uses Thunder Punch, but you whiff on the coin flip, he'll deal 30, but he'll deal 10 damage back to himself. But if you put a Defender on Electabuzz, he won't do the damage to itself. This also works for when you're confused and you whiff out on the coin flip. If your opponent is sniping the bench or trying to, you could put Defender on a bench Pokemon. If you're using something like Self-Destruct or Explosion, and you don't want your Pokemon to get knocked out and you want to use it again, this is the card for you. So, there are some honorable mentions. I don't really want to say you should splash them in any deck because it's not really that useful. Like, use Energy Search for cards that, for decks that run multicolored energy cards. Like if you're running like a water and a fire, but you need a fire type energy for a fire type Pokemon, use Energy Search. There's also, and I haven't used this a lot, but you can also use Electrode. 2 energies deal 20 damage, and he has 90 hit points. You pretty much, your opponent is pretty much fighting against a 90 hit point Pokemon that's dealing 20 damage each turn. But that's it for today's video. If you guys like this kind of educational video, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. I may do more in the future, but I'm not very well spoken, so don't hold your breath. So, Well, I had fun making this video. Hopefully this video helps you help clear the air for you and things like that. And I'll see you in the next video. Okay? Have a great day.